I wanted to like this movie. What's going on, y'all? The Brandon Brownson here, and unfortunately, I'm doing a movie review. Why unfortunately? Because I just got done watching a really bad movie entitled VHS Viral. Now, before I even really start this review, this is the third part of a series of videos, a franchise, I believe is the proper term, and I loved the first two parts of the franchise. So basically, what VHS is a series of short films, short lost footage style films. Now, you have one overarching story that kind of links all of them together to an extent. In between, one of the characters in the overarching story finds these VHS tapes that contain the other short films that are in here. I think it's a fantastic concept, and I loved the first two movies. The first one was okay, and it contained the only short story in the first two that I didn't like. The second one learned from the first one's mistakes. It was bigger, it was better, it was scarier. This third one, though, to say that it jumped the shark would be an understatement. It took a row of 40 sharks and Evel Knievel that shit. This was not a case of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. This was a case of 2 steps forward, turn around, and sprint until your legs give out. Why is that? Well, I'm about to explain in very vivid detail because I have almost 4 pages worth of notes because I took notes in this one, which is something I need to start doing for my film reviews. But anyways, let's go ahead and start. So, right away, the synopsis on Netflix. By the way, if you want, you can watch this movie on Netflix, but I'm about to explain why you shouldn't. The synopsis on Netflix is thus: during a police chase, amateurs rush to shoot videos they hope will go viral, unwittingly casting themselves as victims in a cyber horror story. Does that sound stupid to you? That sounded stupid to me. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell the overarching story in one part. Usually how it goes is overarch, another story, overarch, another story, overarch, another story. For the sake of simplicity, I'm going to put the overarch into one giant thing, just to kick it off. Right off the bat, the overarch fucked up in the opening moments. So, in the opening moments of 1 and 2, it gave you kind of a creepy feeling. It gave you an unnerving feeling. The first one started off as a bunch of snuff footage filming. The second one started off as a private investigator. It had nothing to do other than kind of setting the tone of what the overarchs are. But then, right from there, it went into a really creepy atmosphere. This one didn't do that. By the way, if anyone's wondering, the overarch story title was Vicious Circles. Okay, so in the first two, we got a really creepy atmosphere. In this one, we got a bunch of unnecessary panty shots. In the first two, we got a really good introduction into what's to come. In this one, we got granny titties. So this guy named Kevin is filming everything for some reason, including a bunch of stuff with his girlfriend Iris. We find out that Kevin's a pervert because he keeps on filming Iris in provocative situations without her knowing, which is a really douchey thing to do, by the way. And we also see some more heartfelt moments, and we find out that Kevin doesn't get along with, I think it's his grandma that he lives with, I don't know. But basically we get a whole bunch of shit that feels like it should be in a totally different movie. However, we then go into what is the central focus of this overarching story, which is a police chase where the police are chasing an ice cream van. For some reason, they never really explain why. And Kevin decides that he has to film it so he can go viral, which is a fucking stupid premise for a horror story, but it's hardly the biggest offense, as I'm sure you'll find out soon. Spooky, scary cell phone stuff happens, Iris goes missing, Kevin is getting yelled at by a cop who gets hit by a van, and this is where we see one of the big issues with this movie. The effects. They were horrible. So the first two had effects, obviously, some of them CGI, some of them practical, and they looked really good. They were pretty minimalistic, but they looked phenomenal. This one tried to go for the whole hog with dismemberment and people on fire and a bunch of blood and people's skin being removed and shit like that, and it all looked bad. And another big issue with the overarching story is that there are no transitions into the next one. There are no segues into the stories, which is the whole reason there is an overarching story to begin with. The first one, you had segues. The second one, you had segues. This one, it just jumped right into whatever the next story was. So what was the point of having the overarching story? Homeboy's fucking phone starts glitching out. We're thrown into the first of the short stories. Again, I'll get to those when I get to them. And from there, Kevin's on his bike, trying to follow this van because it might lead him to his girlfriend. And for a split second, it felt like a VHS movie. And then it completely ruined it. We then go to a scene where a bunch of people are trying to film this chase. One guy jumps on top of a bridge to film it from the railing. He loses his footing, he falls, he dies. And we see this from like 50 different camera angles, and that's another big issue with this movie. In the first VHS film, we pretty much saw everything from one camera angle, one person's perspective. In the second VHS film, we had, I think, exactly one story where it was shot from multiple cameras, and it made sense because the setting of it was a TV documentary on a cult. So it made sense that you got to see it from a couple different angles, but even then, it didn't jump around as much as most modern movies do. VHS 3, the camera constantly jumps, and in the overarching story I can kind of understand because every phone has a decent camera on it now, so it's possible to get that many perspectives. But it wasn't a good idea. In the scene where the guy falls off the bridge here, you see it from like 15 different perspectives or some shit like that, and it took away so much of what made the first two really good. It didn't even feel like a lost footage film. That's a huge chunk of the problem. None of this felt like lost footage shit. It all felt like a really bad episode of Supernatural, but I'm getting ahead of myself. From there, it jumps into the main character, Kevin. Main character, by the way. Kevin getting in a small altercation with this group of kids on bikes. The ice cream truck that they're trying to chase hits one of the kids. For some reason, his helmet gets stuck on the back of the truck. We see his feet dragging until they fall off. And his buddies and Kevin are trying to follow him and successfully catching up to the ice cream truck. And here leads another one of the big issues with this story in particular. If the ice cream truck is driving slow enough for kids on bicycles to catch up with them, why do the police not box him in and take care of it that way? If this high-speed chase is going at that slow of a rate, this should have been over so quickly, especially since the ice cream truck keeps going in a fucking circle. They mention that he keeps going in a fucking circle. The title of the story is Vicious Circles. You know where he's going to go. You know he's not going that fast, or she. They never really explain who the fuck was driving the ice cream truck. Why don't you try and cut him off? It makes no sense. Again, it dives right into the next story. No transition. The next part of the overarching story doesn't even try and follow Kevin. It's just some shit going on in a Latino's backyard barbecue. TLDR version, a fight breaks out, some dude's dog gets stabbed, and the guy whose dog gets stabbed kills everyone before a propane tank blows up, killing him. I don't understand why this is even there. This doesn't even focus on Kevin, who is supposed to be the star of this overarching story. It's there just to be there. Which I think explains this movie pretty well. We reach the end of Vicious Circles, and it starts off with a chick in the back of a taxi getting naked. It turns out that she's being recorded by a guy who does one of those revenge porn sites. Homegirl pulls a gun on him, there's a struggle, the taxi crashes into one of the police cars. Again, this has nothing to do with our main character other than you see him for a split second riding by on his bike. Okay, why is that in there? What is the grand conclusion of this overarching story? Well, Kevin finds the ice cream truck, which for some reason is not surrounded by cops. He goes in the back of it and he sees a video stream of his girlfriend telling him to upload the footage, whatever the fuck that means. He hits the switch, it uploads, he gets out of the van and finds his girlfriend dead right fucking next to the van. Ultimately, according to the Wikipedia article, because I actually had to look this shit up to try and make sense of it, apparently there was a video going to everyone's cell phone that made everyone kooky and crazy and snap. So the payoff is that there isn't one. We don't get a payoff. It's not scary. It's really not scary whatsoever. And this is our overarching story. So you can imagine how the fucking rest of it's going to be. Let's go into the second story. Keep in mind, this second story was my first full taste of what this movie was going to be. The overarching story, again, was supposed to act as a segue from one scene to another, from one story to another, with its own story and plotline going on too. So this was my initial reaction, my big initial reaction of how this movie was going to be. And even though the opening was really stupid, I had kind of high hopes. And this story took my hopes, threw them on the ground, stomped on them, spit on them, and then defecated on them. This is Dante the Great. Right off the bat, Dante the Great didn't know what it was trying to be. Part of it styled itself after a TV documentary. Part of it was footage from a police interrogation. Part of it was swap footage. But here's the thing. There is a point in this where it just quit trying to be a found footage. There is a part of it where it's just like every other movie, and there is a cameraman, not someone in the story, but a cameraman filming a fight scene. There's no way that this could have been someone actually there. Like, there was a TV recording thing going on for this documentary, but there's no way that this cameraman could have been in some of these places. It wasn't a found footage, it was just a regular movie halfway through this, but let's get into the actual plot. As much as I don't want to, forgive my squeaking chair. So this magician named Dante the Great sucks dick as a magician until he finds a magical cloak. Apparently, Harry Houdini owned this cloak and he was scared of it, so he got rid of it. And this cloak gives him actual magic, and he becomes the greatest magician ever. They have parts like him reaching into the cloak and pulling out a rabbit, and it'll show like interdimensional portal type thing open, and his hand grab the rabbit, and he can do sparks and shit like that. That's kind of whatever. But they really jumped the shark with this magic. There is a scene where his show starts off in New York City, and he magics everyone to Los Angeles. That's something that they actually tried to pass off. This guy magics an entire audience to a different city. This is the kind of asshattery we're talking about. But wait, how does this cloak work? How does this cloak get its power? It eats people. The cloak fucking eats people. There's a spooky demon living inside of the cloak that fucking eats people. The second that I found out that that's basically what the plot boils down to, I lost all hope in this movie. I kept watching because I fucking hate myself, but I lost all hope. And by the way, the magician's assistant, Dante's assistant, is kind of the central character of this other than Dante. The assistant rats on Dante, says, hey, I found out that he's using his cloak to kill people, go get him. And then some spooky, scary stuff happens, which ends in a giant fight scene where Dante and the assistant are trying to get the cloak. Eventually, the girl gets the cloak to eat Dante, tries to light it on fire to get rid of it, but it doesn't work and the cloak eats her. Again, this felt less like VHS and more like a really bad episode of Supernatural. I don't even know how to properly comment on how bad this was. I don't know how to tear it apart any more than the movie already does. I'm trying to think of something funny to say or something profound to say as to why it doesn't work, but I can't think of anything because it's that bad. It's so bad I can't make fun of it. It's so bad that I can't point out how fucking horrible it is. It's the goofiest fucking thing I have ever seen up to that point. Unfortunately, there's still 2 more short stories. From there we go to Parallel Monsters. And I was really iffy about this one, but then it really drew me in, only to disappoint me. So, the plot of this, and before I even start with the plot, here's something kind of buttfucky about this. This entire short story was done in a different language. Why? I don't know, but it was. And you had to manually turn subtitles on Netflix. The movie did not include subtitles in the actual thing, despite the fact that this was clearly meant for an English-speaking audience. I don't know if it's only like this on the Netflix version, but I thought it was really stupid that I had to turn the subtitles on. But let's get into the actual story. So there's this dude named Alfonso who's building a interdimensional portal in his basement. How he got the money to do such a thing and why he isn't in an actual scientific lab and how he was able to do this in his basement they never explain, but that's the plot. And the interdimensional portal works, and he sees himself from another dimension. So Alfonso talks to Alfonso, and Alfonso's like, hey, let's switch dimensions for 15 minutes just to see what everything's like on the other side. And Alfonso's like, cool. So Alfonso steps into Alfonso's dimension. Kinda goofy, kinda confusing. I was intrigued. So Alfonso A walks into Alfonso B's dimension, and things are a little different. There's weird noises, a zephyr with an upside-down cross on it, satanic rituals going on. Basically what it boils down to is Alfonso B lived in a dimension run by Satan. The people are demons. Anti-Christian iconography is everywhere. I'm really, really interested at this point. So Alfonso B, Alfonso's wife, and 2 other dudes who for some reason had the same name were all supposed to be part of a satanic ritual that night. But Alfonso B went to Alfonso A's dimension, and Alfonso A, who knows nothing about what's going on, goes into Alfonso B's dimension. So you can see where there's a bit of a dilemma. Again, I'm really interested. The 2 dudes who are supposed to be doing the ritual pull Alfonso A away, and their faces start glowing. It's obvious that they're demons. You have my attention. And this is where it all goes downhill. One of the dudes pulls down his pants, and he has a demon penis. A fucking demon penis with a mouth that tries to eat Alfonso A. Let me just go ahead and read you what my note for this was. Demon with demon penis. The plot boils down to demon with demon penis. Oh, and there's a demon vagina, don't forget that. Once more, shark equals jumped. Yeah, and the wife has a demon vagina. I was so pissed when that happened. But it continues. Alfonso A runs back into his house, finds out that wife B has a demon vagina. He bitch smacks her, runs down and goes back into his dimension, where Alfonso B had just got done with Alfonso A's wife. Alfonso B stabs Alfonso A in the knee, goes back into his dimension, and Alfonso B's wife eats Alfonso B's face with the demon vagina. It ends with Alfonso A sobbing as Alfonso A's wife, who is covered in blood because of the demon dick, stabs Alfonso A over and over and over again. This had a really cool plot. The interdimensional thing was a little goofy, but I was willing to suspend my disbelief. I really was. I was a fan of Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls. Obviously, I'm willing to suspend my disbelief to a certain point. This was the point where I knew that there was no coming back for this series. This is the point where I knew that VHS had committed suicide. It was dead. It was done. It was to be no more. And there's still one more. And this last story is called Bone Storm. So the plot of Bone Storm is that there's two bro dude skateboarders and a guy who's filming them. It starts off with the guy who's filming them kind of keeping his fingers crossed that something's going to go horribly, horribly wrong. One of the bro dude skateboarders jumps from one tall ass building to another, and the guy intentionally fucks up the shot, so they have to re-record it in hopes that the guy will fuck up. There's also a scene where one of the bro dude skateboarders is about to go down a hill, which would have led him across the street. A Jeep is clearly coming, but dude says go ahead, and he ends up hitting the car. So, nice guy. There's then a scene where there's a giant fight in the skate park, and the two skateboarder dudes give a homeless guy a cigarette and some food. The camera guy tells him to fight the hobo, but whatever. So I guess if this is supposed to make the two skater dudes likable, I don't know. Anyways, TLDR version, they go to Tijuana so they can finish up their rad skate video and buy fireworks and weed and stupid bullshit. They end up in Tijuana. End up in an area where it is clear that some spooky satanic shit has gone down. There is satanic imagery spray painted on the ground. There's a bunch of satanic items. There's fucking flesh just rotting casually. But the bro dudes decide, hey, we're gonna skate here. One of the bro dude skateboarders cuts open his elbow, bleeds on the satanic circle, and all hell breaks loose. This area is flooded by a cult who successfully killed a cameraman and some schmutz who they brought with them, while the two skateboarding bro dudes fight them off with their skateboards and a gun that they had on them for some reason. Spooky Satan magic happens, the dead guys come back to life, the bro dudes fight them off, and it's hinted at that there is going to be a demon. It ends with the bro dudes running off, and then it goes back to the camera of one of the dead guys. A really shitty looking demon, or at least the demon's feet and tail, come out of a hole of some kind, and the demon bites off the head of one of the dead guys, and that's it. We really don't get to see the demon. We don't know what happened to the two surviving skaters. It just abruptly ends. And that's the last part of this. That's the last story, since I already covered the overarching one. So what do I think of VHS 3? It was horrible. There was not one story that I liked. There was one that started off really strong, and then it fucked the stump. It not only fucked the stump, but it impregnated the stump, giving birth to an entire forest of failure. I can't even suggest that you go watch this movie to see how bad it is, because it's not a funny kind of bad. It's just terrible. all of these stories have really stupid fucking plots. In the case of Bone Storm, they've done cults way better in the past. They've done demons way better in the past. In the case of Dante the Great, the idea of a satanically possessed cloak of some kind is a really fucking stupid one. I mean, okay, it might be cool in a different platform with a different writer. It might be a cool concept in an entirely different setting, but for VHS, and especially the way they did it, it was dumb. Parallel Monsters had a really cool premise, but then they ruined it with demon dicks and demon vaginas. And Vicious Circles, which was supposed to kind of tie everything together, not only failed miserably at tying everything together, but failed miserably as a story. It gets no decent payoff, the whole thing makes no sense. VHS Viral sucked. This is the death of a franchise I really liked. I was hoping so badly that they were going to make a VHS 3. Boys and girls, be careful what you wish for, because sometimes you get it. If I had to give it a star rating, I would have to give it a 3 out of 10. The only reason why it doesn't go any lower is because it hurts for me to say that VHS 3, VHS Viral, not only did not live up to 1 and 2, but possibly took the franchise behind the barn, shot it in the back of the head 17 times. But, I ask you couch surfers, if you have seen VHS Viral, what did you think? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? And if you disagree with me, please explain why, because I cannot find a single redeeming quality in this movie. And hey, check out all those other sexy links down there. Buy my shit, follow my channels, check out the other channels, follow me on social media. I don't even want to properly give my plugs right now. I just want this whole experience to be over with. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. TheBrandonBrownson, signing out. Ugh.